My name is Edie Usher. I am 29 years old, and the last time my father truly looked at me, he did it across a Christmas table while tearing $5 million into strips. He called me selfish. He called me stupid. He called me the worst daughter he had ever raised. What he didn't know was that by the following autumn, he would stand in a courtroom with shaking hands, watching a judge hand me everything he believed should have been his. But none of that is the part that still wakes me up. The part that wakes me up is the memory of my grandmother's hand on my cheek that final winter, warm, steady, certain, as if she already knew how the story would end. Before we begin, take a second to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. Now, let me take you back to Christmas Eve. The last dinner my grandmother ever cooked. My grandmother never locked her front door. Not once in 47 years. She said locks were for people who expected to be robbed, and she had already survived everything worth stealing. Her house sat at the top of Linden Hollow Road, half hidden by pine trees and memory. The porch sagged slightly on the left side. The wind chime by the window had been broken since 2009, but still made one soft note whenever the weather turned. And every December, the house smelled exactly the same. Wood smoke, banana bread, cinnamon, and something older underneath it all, like books, wool, and time itself. I drove up that hill in my rusted Subaru with a paper sack of apples from the little tree behind my rental duplex. The tires slipped once on the snow, then caught. She opened the door before I could knock. Corn yellow sweater, blue apron, silver hair pinned back badly. The same face that had comforted every version of me. "There you are," she said, as if she'd only been waiting a minute. She kissed my forehead and held my jaw gently in one hand. That was her habit, touching my face like she was checking whether life had changed me. "Tell me about your class," she asked every Saturday. And she always listened as the answer mattered. We sat at the kitchen table with mismatched teacups while I told her about Daniel, one of my third graders. Daniel never spoke during group activities, but wrote essays so thoughtful they made me stop breathing halfway through reading them. "What does he need?" she asked. "Patience." She nodded. "Then give him Saturdays." That was how she spoke, small sentences that followed you for years. I told her about the flea market bed frame I had bought for $30, missing a drawer and probably haunted. She laughed into her tea. Likely belonged to a farmer who disapproved of novels. Her hand shook when she set the cup down. Just once. I pretended not to notice. We knitted in companionable silence after that. She was making something small and gray. She wouldn't show me. I was losing a battle with a scarf I had begun in October. Outside the window, the cardinal landed on the feeder, took one seed, and flew off. Exactly as always. She watched him with an unreadable expression. When I stood to leave, she pressed a thick envelope into my hand. Gas money. Inside were 2 crisp $10 bills. She gave me the same envelope every month. I never spent them. I kept them in a shoebox under my bed because what she was giving me was never money. It was care. I didn't know it then, but that was the third to last Saturday I would ever have with her. My mother never called to ask how I was. She called to explain how she was, ask what I had, and determine whether some of it should become hers. She caught me 10 miles down the hill. "Edie, honey, were you with the old lady again?" That was what she called my father's mother. Never Sylvia. Never Grandma. The old lady. "I go every Saturday, Mom." She sighed theatrically. "She's fine. She has a pension." Then I heard chewing. "My brother Grant. Need a ride Monday," he said. "Truck's dead. I teach on Monday. So afternoon." My sister Holland texted while he was still talking. "Need $200 just till Friday, babe." My mother continued over everyone. "Christmas dinner this year at her place. Your father wants a roast. And make sure she doesn't overdo it. She gets tired and then just sits there staring." No one asked how she was feeling. No one asked about her hip. No one asked why her hand trembled. I waited silently, hoping someone might. No one did. Then my mother lowered her voice. "And Edie? Don't let her guilt you into moving in. She'll use your kindness." I hung up. The road ahead was white with snow. Somewhere on that drive, I made a decision I would only understand later. I was done expecting warmth from cold people. In late October, she told me she was dying. We were in the garden cutting back rosemary for winter. The light was gold and low. She sat heavier than usual on the bench and said, "Do you remember Dr. Priya?" "Yes. I saw her Tuesday." Then she looked at the dirt while saying it. "Pancreatic. Stage 4. The world did not tilt dramatically. Birds did not scatter. Nothing cinematic happened. Instead, a single leaf detached from the maple tree beside us. That was all. "Chemo?" I whispered. She shook her head. "I'd rather spend what time I have here. In this garden. At my kitchen table. With books and bad coffee." I started crying then. She squeezed my hand. "Don't tell them. Grandma, I want one more Christmas that feels like Christmas. Not a funeral rehearsal." Then she smiled faintly. "And I have something to settle first." I should have asked what she meant. I didn't. Every member of my family arrived on Christmas Eve carrying invisible shopping lists disguised as affection. My father came first. Richard Usher had the posture of a man who mistook stiffness for authority. He stomped snow from his boots, opened the refrigerator without asking, and criticized the thermostat within 30 seconds. My mother entered behind him, already complimenting things she was evaluating. "Oh, the tree is darling." Her eyes were counting ornaments. Grant brought a girlfriend who looked exhausted. Holland entered filming vertically. Cozy grandma vibes, you guys. She did not hug anyone. My grandmother moved quietly between the stove and table in her yellow sweater. She watched everyone with the expression of a woman who had long ago stopped being surprised. Dinner was roast beef, potatoes, carrots, and rolls brushed with butter. No one thanked her properly. They ate like customers. When the plates were half empty, she stood slowly. "I have something for each of you." No one stopped talking immediately. She opened a wooden box beside her chair and withdrew 5 cream envelopes. She handed one to each of us. "Mine last." Her fingers touched my shoulder briefly. My father opened his first. I watched expectation become confusion. Then outrage. Inside was a check. $5 million. Drawn from First National Hollow Ridge. Signed in her unmistakable hand. Grant laughed. "Good one." Holland held hers to the light. My mother stared, visibly calculating. Then my father barked. "It's fake. Don't be idiots." He tore his in half. My mother followed. "Mother, honestly." Grant crushed it into a ball and tossed it under the table. Holland walked to the fireplace and fed hers to the flames while recording. I watched the corner curl black. Then I looked at my grandmother. She was only looking at me. I folded mine once. Placed it in my purse. "Thank you, Grandma." She nodded. Just once. The next morning, I went to the bank. Mostly to prove everyone right. The manager, Benedict Strom, had known me since I was 16. He smiled when I entered. He did not smile after seeing the check. His face drained white. "Come with me." He led me past the tellers into a private room and locked the door. My hands began to shake. "Is it real?" He sat down slowly. "Miss Usher, these funds are valid." I stared at him. He continued. "Your grandmother established a private account in November. 5 checks were prepared. This one is genuine." I laughed once. A strange sound. Then he added 4 words I will never forget. "This is only part." I blinked. "What?" "There is substantially more. Her attorney will contact you." By noon, $5 million sat in my account. And my life had already begun changing in ways money had nothing to do with. I drove straight to her house. She was making coffee. "You went to the bank?" she asked. "Yes." Was Benedict kind? He was terrified. She smiled. Then she told me the truth. My grandfather had left her $400,000 in 1998. She had taught herself investing. Read library books. Wrote letters to a financial columnist in Chicago who later became a mentor. When he died, he left her a stake in his firm. By Christmas, she was worth over $40 million. I stared. Why didn't anyone know? She sipped coffee. No one asked. Then she added softly. They only ever asked what I could do for them. The calls began that afternoon. 32 in 45 minutes. Holland, I changed my mind. Grant, that's family money. My mother is crying beautifully into voicemail. My father pounded on the front door 40 minutes later. You gave her 5 million? My grandmother stood behind the glass and did not open it. I gave all of you 5 million, she said. 4 of you burned it. Then, for the first time in 47 years, she turned the lock. He stood there stunned. Then left. She returned to the table, picked up her toast, and said, "Well, that's begun." She slipped on the ice in January while feeding the cardinal. Broke her hip. Refused the hospital. Choose hospice at home. I took leave from school and moved into the spare bedroom. I read to her each night. Willa Cather. Poems. Recipes. The newspaper when she was too tired for stories. Sometimes she slept holding my hand. Sometimes she corrected my pronunciation. My father visited once. Suggested moving her somewhere more practical. She said, "Richard, I am home." He never returned. One Thursday near the end, she handed me a brass key. "For Halverson," she said. Her lawyer. "What does it open?" "You'll see." She died February 3rd at 5:47 a.m. I know because I looked at the little travel clock on her nightstand. I was holding her hand. The furnace clicked off. The house became impossibly still. Then I knew. Outside, the cardinal landed, took one seed, and flew away. At the funeral, my father cried loudly. My mother wore widow-like grief despite not being widowed. Holland filmed discreetly. Grant checked his phone. I read the poem she had requested. My voice did not break until the last line. She wanted no eulogy from Richard. He tried anyway. Halverson stopped him with one glance. The will reading was 10 days later. Everyone arrived dressed like they expected a reward. Halverson opened the folder. Specific gifts first. Tea set to me. Bridge set to her best friend Margaret. Piano to the elementary school. Then the remainder. House. 23 acres. Investments. Accounts. Personal effects. Approximate value after gifts, $40.2 million. To be left entirely to Edie Rosemary Usher. Silence. Then my father stood. "Is this a joke?" "No," Halverson said. My mother made a sound like porcelain cracking. Grant stared at me. Holland quietly began recording until ordered to stop. Then Halverson read her statement. "I leave this to my granddaughter Edie because she came with no motive except love. She visited on Saturdays. She cared for me when I was weak. She never once asked what I had." My father sat down slowly. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. The lawsuit came 4 days later. Undue influence. Manipulation of an elderly woman. The entire family united against me. I laughed so hard I cried. Halverson represented me for free. "She trusted me for 30 years, he said. "I intend to honor that." The case dragged on for months. I went back to teaching. Children still needed spelling tests even when your family was suing you. One Saturday in May, we opened the safe that the brass key belonged to. Inside, medical evaluations proving her mental competence. Every birthday card I had ever sent her. And a journal. One entry for every Saturday I had visited. Hundreds of them. Edie came. We baked a pie. Edie came tired. We napped. Edie came sad. We planted bulbs. 487 entries. She had counted every ordinary act of love. I sat on her bedroom floor and wept into my sleeve. The court was in October. Dr. Priya testified. Margaret testified. Then I testified. The family lawyer asked, "Why do you think she left you everything?" I had no prepared answer. So I told the truth. Because I kept showing up. The judge wrote something down. Then, the court ruled in my favor. Will valid. Contest dismissed. Plaintiffs are responsible for legal fees. My father shouted in the hallway. "You are the worst daughter I've ever had." A reporter wrote it down. The quote ran in the paper. Small towns remember things. Especially cruelty. Life has a strange way of collecting unpaid debts. My father had already lost his job. No one hired him after the article. My mother's spa lost clients. Grant's business folded. Holland's followers turned on her after leaked videos of the fireplace check stunt resurfaced. Her husband discovered $80,000 in hidden debt and filed for divorce. One by one, the lives built on appearances cracked. I did not celebrate. That surprised me most. I simply felt done. Months later, while clearing a desk drawer, I found another notebook. Small leather. Every year, listed donations to Briar Hollow Elementary is milk program, books, supplies, band instruments, 40 years of anonymous giving. Total, $284,600. My school. The school where I taught. The school where children drank milk because of her. She had funded kindness quietly for decades. No plaque. No credit. No speech. That was when I understood wealth had never been money to her. It was useful. My mother came to see me the following winter. She had aged. Really aged. No performance left. She showed me a letter Halverson had given her after the will reading. In it, my grandmother wrote, "I forgave you years ago for being afraid of love. But forgiveness does not require reward." My mother cried silently at my kitchen table. Then she asked for money. Not dramatically. Almost embarrassed. I said no. Then I told her I was creating a scholarship fund in Grandma's name. For children who needed help. For milk. For books. For college. She nodded. She hugged me once. Small and brief. At the door, I said, "I'm not angry anymore. I just don't know you." She nodded again and left. I resigned from teaching that spring, then immediately applied to teach somewhere else. I moved to a small coastal town in Maine because the name sounded like something she would love. I kept the same salary. Bought no mansion. No sports car. No nonsense. I established the Edie Usher Scholarship Fund with $20 million. Tuition. Books. Meals. Support for every child in Hollow Ridge County who needed it. Halverson cried while filing the papers. The only time I ever saw him cry. I gave Margaret lifetime use of the old house for her bookstore. She named the new branch Sylvia's second reading. Painted the sign herself. My father sent me a birthday card 6 months later. Generic front. Inside, in cramped handwriting, "I hope you're well." I did not reply, but I did not tear it up. Healing can look like nothing dramatic at all. Sometimes it looks like choosing not to become what hurt you. The cottage in Maine overlooked the Atlantic. The floors creaked. The coffee nearby was terrible. I laughed the first time I tasted it. A real laugh. The kind that rises before permission. By the next June, I had a 4th grade classroom with ocean light in the windows. A quiet student named Rosie who needed patience. So I gave her Tuesdays after school. My grandmother would have called them Saturdays. A skinny yellow stray cat wandered through my screen door one evening, climbed onto the corn yellow sweater draped on my chair, and fell asleep. I named him Cather. He slept there every night, as if guarding what was left of her. One August evening, I sat on my porch with the sunset stretching slowly over the water and wrote her a letter I would never mail. I told her about Rosie, about the scholarship students, about the cat, about how I finally understood. I had not won because I inherited money. I had won because when it mattered most, I knew how to love someone without asking what came back. Because I showed up. Because I listened. Because I stayed. Because when $5 million was placed in front of me, I said thank you before I said mine. I folded the letter and placed it inside the little wooden box from Christmas Eve. Then I went inside to feed the cat. The house was quiet, warm, unlocked. And for the first time in my life, it was mine in every way that mattered.